Hi, I'm Daisy Swan with Daisy Swan and Associates, and I'm so delighted to be here with my guest, my guest Christine Negulewski,
Yes.
and she is going to be talking with us today about LinkedIn and recruiters and how they use LinkedIn to find good candidates. And hopefully one of those candidates will be you. So well, Christine, do you want to go ahead and say hello? And then I'm going to say a little bit about you.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad to meet you virtually.
Great. So we're going to have time for questions and answers, and but right now I want to introduce Christine, and then I'll be asking her some questions. And if you have any questions, please do use the live Facebook site where you can post things, and then we'll be able to get to those questions and answers. So Christine is an in-house corporate recruiter with over 15 years of recruiting experience from Fortune 500 companies in Chicago and Los Angeles. She has an expert understanding of the full hiring process, and which is why I wanted her to be here today. She's also been a friend and colleague for many years, so I trust her implicitly. She knows all about resume selection, interviewing methods, and strategies for hiring and job offer and negotiation and the whole Megillah. She's worked with consulting companies, entertainment agencies, financial firms, and tech companies. So that just about covers everything. Maybe not legal, right? But just about everything. And she also advises clients on how best to break into targeted companies. So she knows the whole range, which is great. Christine lives in Santa Monica, and as I said, she's been a good friend and a colleague for all these years. So I'm really happy to have her here with me. So Christine, let's get to our questions.
I'm looking forward to it. And thank you, Daisy, for that very nice introduction.
Glad you're here. So Christine, can you give us a little bit of an overview? How have you seen recruiting change or hiring change over the last 10 years?
Sure. So I would say the way we recruit and the way we hire candidates has changed significantly in the last 10 years, mainly because of the advent of social media and LinkedIn and the way you submit resumes. So if you think about it, LinkedIn was not even very active 10 years ago, and online portals to submit your resume was also not very active. And so kind of a little bit, people used to still, send a hard physical copy of their resume and send it in, and that's how resumes were reviewed. But in terms of candidate selection, hiring managers today and companies in general are looking for more blended candidates and blended experience candidates. So for example, it used to be that, for an example, if you were a marketing person and I was looking to hire a marketing candidate, I would most likely be looking for, kind of a little bit of the right brain person, someone with a lot of creativity, an eye for design, very good idea generation and creating new campaigns and new ads. Today, the marketing also requires a little bit of left side, that you need analytical skills. There's a lot of searching at the market dynamics and doing market analysis and data analysis as well. And then on the flip side, kind of looking at an accountant, it used to be that if you were looking for an accountant, you just need somebody that was an expert in numbers and an expert in Excel and pivot tables and VLOOKUPs and so forth. And today's candidates also accountant candidates also need to have excellent communication skills, the ability to present to senior leaders across the team. So the biggest change is that companies and hiring managers are looking for more blended skills for a singular position, and not candidates don't always have those blended skills, that left brain and right brain.
Interesting. Yeah. And so we're not, obviously, we're not going to those classified ads the way we once did, but we are using all of these different online locations to find things.
Right.
And so are you saying that the job descriptions themselves have really changed?
I would say yes, I would say the jobs have changed a little bit based on company needs. And the blended companies are running, even though today's a very robust market, most companies run very, very lean. And so they're requiring more work out of either the same volume of employees or less volume of employees. So what used to be 2 people in 2 different jobs, it is now combining the 2 jobs into 1 job and trying to find 1 person to do the 1 job and asking that 1 person to have a variety of skill sets. So it can make for challenging for recruiters like myself trying to find candidates who have a wide breadth of experience. So we're looking for blended candidates. We're asking more of candidates today
Right.
to have more well-rounded experience. It used to be that it was much more straight cut, and it is less so today.
So then how does LinkedIn fit in with a hiring cycle?
So when I meet with a hiring manager, one of the very first things that we cover is the type of profile that they're looking to hire. And LinkedIn falls within that, because when I do my search on LinkedIn, I'm not only looking for the experience where you've currently worked and your education and so forth. I'm also trying to get a sense of your profile of who you are as a person and your full skill sets. And that's one of the nice things about LinkedIn, is you can get an understanding of what someone is like a little bit more stronger than you do just on a resume.
Okay, so what is it that gives you that je ne sais quoi, that little bit of extra information?
So it's the complete picture. Would you like me to walk through a little bit about what makes a rockstar LinkedIn profile, what makes a eye-catchy LinkedIn profile?
That would be great, please.
Okay. So the first thing is to have a good picture, a good professional picture. It doesn't necessarily need to be by a professional photographer, but a picture that is, you're not in a party, or you're not hanging out with friends and, have beer bottles in your hand, or that type of a thing. And I would definitely encourage, it's always interesting to me how many people are not smiling in the picture. So definitely to be smiling and be looking towards the camera as if you're looking towards your future boss, your future teammates. And while it may seem so simplistic and so obvious, it's something that is really interesting to me that a lot of people don't do. The second thing would be, there's a summary section right underneath your photo headline. So the summary is the best place on the entire profile to really shine. You want to list your strengths, you want to list your assets, you want to list what you have to offer to a pending employer, and also anyone you want to network with. I encourage folks, this is not a resume, it's an online professional, but it's an online social network. And so to use an authentic voice, speak in an authentic tone, let people kind of see your side a little bit, and really highlight the points that you want the reader to walk away with. And I often will recommend to folks to have a good friend read the summary and then ask them, what did you get out of that summary? and see if they mentioned the 2 or 3 things that you were trying to get across to someone.
Well, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So as a recruiter, are you spending a lot of time finding people through their summaries?
No. So when I do a search, I am looking for folks first based on the experience that they have and the profile that I'm seeking for. Then once I get, let's say I search and I get 50 profiles back that meet my requirements, the second step then is who's going to fit my profile, the type of candidate that I'm looking for. And usually one of the first places I go to get a sense of that is in the summary.
Uh-huh, okay. So that summary really needs to have those keywords that you're going to be searching for.
So keywords in what you want the reader to come away with, and the reason why I emphasize that is there's a lot of misconception about the importance of keywords out there.
Okay.
And unless you have, it's less important unless you have some type of specific software experience, and I'm looking for an IT person, and I want this IT person, it's required that they have, 4 different types of software experience. But other than that, I'm just looking to get an idea of who you are and what you're like. I can give an example if you'd like.
That's good.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to use a general example of a sales manager. Most folks know what a sales manager does. They go out and they recruit new business for the company, and they will manage an account relationship for the company. That said, while that's a generic position, there's a lot of different types of sales folks that we need. And for instance, at my last company, we had probably about 30 sales managers, and we looked for profiles that were dependent on the type of account that they were managing. So for example, we could have one account that didn't have a good contact, they didn't have good leadership at that account, they didn't have good communication, and so we were going to need a sales manager who was really going to drive the business over there, who was really going to step in and be assertive and be account, display confidence and say, you need to do this, this, and that, and let me come over and show you how it's done. So that's a driver, that's somebody who's very aggressive. On another account, we may have an account who the contact is very savvy, could possibly even have display an attitude that they know everything, and they just need you to execute. They don't want your opinions, they don't want your advice, they don't want your guidance, they just want you to say, yes, I'll get that to you by 5 o'clock tomorrow.
Right.
So the type, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so the type of person, the type of profile then I'm looking for, if it was the example A, I'm going to be looking for that aggressive go-getter type personality, that person who can really jump in, own it, and build it and run with it. But in that type B example, I'm not going to be looking for that. I'm going to be likely looking for a more humble salesperson. A salesperson who's more based on relationships, a salesperson who probably asks questions a lot rather than stating, here's what you need to do. So the resume in terms of experience could be identical for both of them. It could be identical in terms of education, but their profiles are very different in the type of person that they're presenting themselves to be, and how they interact with those around them.
So it really is the personality and how it's coming across. Okay.
And
so
that's what I get out of the summary.
Okay. So it's really important to not just list words, for example. It's really that what I would call connective tissue in your expository writing that gives the flavor of who somebody is, their personality. Is that true?
That is perfect. And the buzzword to that is, what's your brand today? You know, everyone, a lot of candidates are hearing in the media that you need to have a brand about yourself. And some people are like, I don't know what my brand is, but you just put the English word to it. It's your personality. And it's a little bit about your work style, because there's no, even, you know, again, going back to a sales manager, you can think they're a dime a dozen, but there's no two alike. And everybody has their distinctive strengths. Someone is going to be excellent at cold calls, and that's going to be their hot spot. And another sales manager, their hot spot could be closing the deal, but they're not getting people on the phone, but they're a closer. So that's what you would want to highlight in your summary is what's your flavor? What's your personality? What are your strengths? Who are you? So that when I'm the recruiter and I have my profile in mind and I'm reading through all these profiles, I can select you based on what my needs are.
Got it. Okay. So when you're doing a search, let's say you find all of those candidates, then what happens?
So the first thing I do is, FYI, for those that are on LinkedIn, and hopefully everybody is, the analogy that I often draw to is that there's a back end of LinkedIn that our recruiters use, and it's similar to kind of like Craigslist. So I go in on a back end, and companies have to purchase licenses to do this, and it's the most expensive piece of having access to LinkedIn candidates, and it's also the largest revenue engine for LinkedIn. A lot of people don't realize how LinkedIn makes its money, and they make their money from companies and recruiters. That's how they make their money. And so there is a back end, a back door, and it's similar to like a Craigslist. So if you're looking for, on Craigslist, an apartment, you're going to put in, do you want 1 bedroom or 2 bedrooms, what zip codes you want, what price range you want, and then Craigslist is going to deliver all the apartments that fit within your specifications. Same thing for LinkedIn. So I go in and I say, I'm looking for a sales manager, and I want someone who has between 5 and 10 years of experience, and I would like them to be in the technology world with any technology company, and I would like to search in these zip codes. And then it's going to serve back to me all the folks that fit those requirements, and then I start clicking on each one, and that's when I start reading the profile and the summaries.
Wow. Okay. So this is really fascinating. So how much are you on LinkedIn now?
It's every day, multiple times a day. LinkedIn is the go-to tool for everyone in professional careers. There is no competitor to LinkedIn. And not only is it for, they initially started out for job searching and for candidate pools, but they're now becoming a professional media house. They have a lot of influencers doing writing, and it's kind of becoming like a journal, an online journal for anything that's going on in the business world. So not only is it a place to seek employment, but I would say just as equally 50%, a place to do professional networking. So even if you're not seeking employment, but you just want to expand your network.
Right. And so I talked about that in the first session that we did with the Google Hangouts in December. And that recording is going to be made available to folks. We didn't have quite as many glitches on that one as we are on this one. But
probably wasn't as much fun either.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. So what about that? When people are posting articles, how does that impact your interest in potential candidates? Should they be posting things just to be posting things, or what would you say about that?
I would say it's dependent on the position. So if you're a creative position, and I use that word very loosely, in a wide galaxy of creative marketing, yes, you need to have online demonstration of your portfolio, of your work. The other thing about LinkedIn, going back to your first question, how has recruiting and hiring changed over the last 10 years, is it used to be that I couldn't do advanced research on a candidate before I picked up the phone and called them. Now I can do a lot of advanced research and then decide, do I even want to call you? And you don't know that. And so depending on the position, if I can't find out anything about you online and I'm looking for a marketing or creative or a heavy people-orientated position, that might give me a pause. So a simple example, in an instance that came up just yesterday, is for a human resources position that I'm recruiting for. Human resources, heavy people. I mean, that's your job all day long. And there was a gal that we came across that had a very strong resume, yet she didn't have a profile on LinkedIn. And so that just tells you something about someone, that they're in a people-orientated job, but they're not giving much attention to their network. And so that gives us a pause. Maybe I won't call her then. Versus someone else who you can see is very active on LinkedIn and is making posts or is sharing information or is sharing about HR trends, or hey, here's a new report about HR. Oh, this person's up to the pulse. She's got a pulse on HR. She knows what's going on. She's being in service to others by sharing information. She is likely going to act that way then. That shows off her personality, that shows off her brand. She's likely going to act that way when she's internal with our company. She's going to be wanting to help employees across the businesses, and that's exactly what we're looking for.
Got it. Okay, so then this probably also fits in with joining groups. That was something that I talked about in the first class that we did online. So joining groups, starting or answering in conversations, being in those conversations in groups.
Highly recommend joining groups. So groups is a great place to network, and it is a great place to build relationships with people, whether they're across the country or in a different country. Yeah, network, sometimes I think people think, oh, I have to go to a wine and cheese event after work and I'm going to walk into the room and nobody's going to know who I am, or I have to go to a conference and I'm going to go walk into a room and nobody who knows who I am. That is one avenue of networking, but that is only a portion of it. There's a large portion of networking that you can do online without ever leaving your couch. And one of that is being in groups on LinkedIn.
Interesting. So let's say somebody wants to do an informational interview. They want to get into the company, learn something about the company. Should they reach out to you? Like, let's say you're a recruiter, let's say you're the person who's listed, if you've posted a job.
Yep.
And so your picture and your name shows up. As whenever I'm looking for jobs with clients, I'll see the recruiters there. Should people reach out to you so that they can learn more about the company or the culture, something like that? What should they do? We talk a lot about doing good research before they're getting out there and doing their job search.
Right. So I'll be honest, it's it's really hard to get recruiters' attention for informational conversation. And the reason is we're getting many requests all day, every day. And that in itself could just be a full-time job. And so this webinar is meant to give kind of a behind-the-scenes look. I'm answering the question truthfully. So all the folks out there watching are getting some inside scoop, some inside knowledge. Your better bet to do informational interview is to reach out to a peer, to someone that is currently in the job that you are considering or exploring, and first seeing, again, through your network, does anybody know anybody, that 6 degrees of separation type of a thing. I think I recently read it's now just 2 or 3 degrees of separation, again, with LinkedIn, that usually you can get to anyone within 2 or 3 degrees. So if you have someone that is a connection 2 to 3 degrees, to use that avenue first. It always helps to have a warm introduction. But if you don't let that stop you. You know, feel welcome. You know, so if you're looking for an analyst position and you want to be an analyst at a law firm in downtown Washington, D.C., look up on LinkedIn, find the other law firms in downtown Washington, D.C., and look on for analysts, and find a handful of analysts that you would feel comfortable approaching. Maybe you went to the same school, or maybe they play basketball and you play basketball. And again, this goes back to your branding, trying to show off something about yourself, that you're an athlete, or you love to play cards, or you love to cook, or whatever your hobbies and interests are. And those types of details will provide a way in to reach out to a peer to say, hey, I'm thinking about either becoming an analyst, or I'm thinking about, I already am an analyst, but I'm thinking about transitioning into your law firm. Before I submit my resume, I would love to get some inside information about what it's like to work there. You know, may I have 10 minutes of your time? I appreciate in advance your time, and we'll respect your time, and could we have a conversation together? That will yield you much higher results than reaching out to someone like myself, a recruiter, simply from a time bandwidth.
Great. That's what I would have thought. I think sometimes I've heard that people will apply for a job and then want to reach out to somebody in the company. Sounds a little backwards.
So you can actually, if there is a job open, you want to cover all your bases. So you can do things simultaneously. So go ahead and get your resume in right away. So don't wait. There is no right order to this. So it's not like you have to do step 1, step 2, step 3. So go ahead and submit your resume, and then try and reach out to a peer, or you certainly try and reach out to the recruiter. So applying for a job is separate from asking for an informational conversation. So if you're applying for a job and I'm interested in your profile, and you reach out to me, and then I'm interested in your profile, I'm going to love the fact that you took an extra step, you know, that you went the extra mile to find me and reach out to me. And if I have a job currently open, then yes, I'm going to get on a call with you.
Okay, so then what about if a position isn't really right for you, but you really are interested in the company or something that's close to that position that you have listed, but you know you're not really right for it? Is it a good idea to submit yourself so that you, the recruiter, then has the information on them?
So most companies only accept resumes for positions that are currently open. We do not keep a bank of resumes for someday. If we did that, we would have, it's akin to having the yellow pages, hundreds of yellow pages in a portal online. And then, you know, the fear is, well, I may not have a position for 2 years, but then the candidate is not even going to be interested in 2 years. They're going to be off and doing something. So we typically like who's available today, who's hot off the press today. And again, most companies don't store resumes unless there's a job open. But if you know you want to work for an identified company, you need to begin networking today. You can't wait till there's a job open, because by and large, by the time the job is open, if you just begin networking then, you're almost too late. Networking is a process. It's like, you know, it takes time to build, it takes time to nurture, it takes time to develop. So if you think, hey, I'm going to be looking for a job in fall of 2016, you want to begin planting those seeds today. You want to begin networking today, so that come August, come September, they're going to be like, oh, remember Daisy, that cool gal that I met back in January, and she had such a positive energy? Give her a call. And they're going to call you up right away, maybe not even post the job or go through all the resumes online. So definitely in advance.
So I can just imagine all of my introverted clients shaking their heads and going, no way, not gonna happen. So what sort of advice do you have for all of those introverts out there?
Well, I would first like to remind all the introverts out there that you are the largest pool of humans. More people are introverts than they are extroverts. So introverts typically sometimes think, extroverts take up all the energy in the room, and I'm an extrovert. I get that we do, but could only maybe be 10% of the population in the room. So going back to what I said earlier, networking can be strictly just online and building online relationships, and it can also be just meeting one-on-one. So that's a more comfortable approach for introverts typically than meeting in large group settings. So a lot of the world is done today, a lot of business is done today, even having nothing to do with networking, but just in business deals, business acquisitions, is all done virtually. You and I are having this conversation virtually. Your clients on this call could be anywhere. So for the introverts listening, don't let that stop you. Networking, like I said, it can be done just from your couch, and you can build an online relationship over many, many months. And you can also certainly do just one-on-one coffee conversations. So that would be an easier approach. The other thing I want to mention about that is there's a great book about, Daisy, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's called Quiet, The Power of Introverts. Are you familiar with that, by Susan Cain?
Absolutely. I love that book, and they're doing a lot of really wonderful work now. In addition to the book, there's a blog that's called Quiet Rev, so for the Quiet Revolution. So you might want to check that out. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I strongly recommend those of the listeners on this call to check that out for introverts. And again, just building online relationships.
Right. I like to recommend the book also, To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink, because he really talks about how we're all selling all the time now.
Yes.
Right? So yes. Whether we are writing something or whether we're business development people, there are so many different nuances in business now where we have to be promoting not only the products or services we provide, but also ourselves. So regardless of if you're an introvert or an extrovert, you got to be doing it, right? So he gives some great tips.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to be networking, even if you're in a current job and you feel as secure as you can possibly feel. Companies get bought and sold. You could be acquired by another company having nothing to do with your performance. You could be the lead salesperson on your team, bringing in the highest revenue. But if your company gets sold, you're out of a job, and you never know when that comes. So yes, we are in an age, 2016, we are in an age where that self-promotion is the way the world works today.
So what about people who are changing careers and they really want to go to using some skills they're developing, but all of their experience is in another kind of niche? What do you think about that? Are you as a recruiter going to appreciate someone like that?
Yeah, so two things. So first of all, for LinkedIn purposes, you would want to present yourself in the summary with the skills and experience that you're wanting to showcase. So if you're transitioning into a new field that requires analytical experience and you've always been in art, you want to show off your analytical thinking and style. Present yourself on your profile as an analytical person. Remember, LinkedIn and actually resumes today, two things about that I always remind folks is they're not legal documents. And I actually don't like the word resume. I think you need to think of them as a marketing document.
Right. Great.
And so you can present yourself in whatever way you would like to present yourself. And you can tell a story of whatever story you would like to tell. Each of us is, an encyclopedia set. And it's hard to just distill all the wonderful things we can do down to 1 or 2 pages. But I encourage folks to pull out the pieces of their background that match the story that they want to tell. So that's one piece is what's the story you want to tell when you're transitioning careers, and to build a resume as a marketing document, to build a LinkedIn profile as a marketing document that reflects the story that you want to share. Secondly, I will say that your best bet for getting into a company is going to be via networking. So if you do not match the profile of what the company is looking for, it is unlikely that you'll be called in based off of your resume. You will have a much better chance of getting your foot in the door via networking. Yeah,
I agree. That's what I always find that I end up telling clients, and that's how we end up working, to find that circuitous route into an organization. So, for example, I've worked with mothers who are making their way back into the workforce. Perhaps they've taken, 10, even 15 years off, which I totally understand and respect. And
sure.
then they want to get back in and perhaps doing something similar, but perhaps not. So they feel really uncomfortable about how they portray those years off. What do you think about that?
So what you want to highlight on the resume is that you're still current with today's processes, practices in your chosen field, because that's the biggest fear by companies. And the world moves so fast today that if you're 2 years removed from a given industry, a lot has likely advanced in that 2 years, and you're 2 years behind. Or at least that's the thinking and the fear on the company side. So you need to counteract. So any content that you can put on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile about what you've been doing on your own to stay up to date and to stay current and present, that you really are knowledgeable about what's happening in January 2016 is a significant piece to it.
So it could even be something like writing an article for the Pulse network. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And because a lot of moms, just because you're raising children, you're still watching the news, or you're still staying in touch with your friends, or you're still getting together with people for lunch, and you're still possibly even on LinkedIn watching what's going on. So that's what you want to demonstrate, is that you're still active. While you may not have been employed, you're still active in the industry.
Right, great. Okay, so we have a question here from one of our listeners, watchers. Should the summary be written in first or third person? Do you think it makes a big difference?
I would say first person. Resume should be written in third person. LinkedIn, though, it's one step more personal. It's, like Facebook is the online social portal for your personal world, and LinkedIn is the online social world for your professional world. And
oh boy, I'm going to have to get back in there and change my profile. I've got it third person all these years, so you're telling me I got to get back in there.
It's not wrong, and if I like you, I'm still going to call you. So don't think I'm going to think, nope, she wrote it third person. She's getting kicked off the list. So no, if I like you, I'm still going to call you. But you had your listener ask the question. First person is better. You want to, like I said, let your authentic voice and let your authentic tone, let your personality, to use your words, shine through. Okay,
that's great. So what are some of the mistakes you see people doing? Are there any automatic dings that you just go, okay, you made it into my first cut, but you're out?
So the two mistakes is, one is not having a profile. Going back to what I mentioned earlier, I can do a lot of online research before I ever even reach out to a candidate. And so if I see that they don't have a LinkedIn profile, it just kind of, are they not interested in expanding their career, growing their career, and networking? And the second thing would be having a poor profile. So having it very, very sparse, hardly any content, no real way for me to get an understanding who you are. If I have a lot of other profiles, I'll probably skip over yours then.
So sometimes when we're doing research, my clients and I will be finding people that it looks like their title is similar to what we're looking for. And so we'll find people and they might have a nice summary, but then the jobs that they've held in the past aren't very well fleshed out. So they'll have the titles, they'll have the company, but they don't really give you much about all the different positions. What do you think about that?
It's okay. Yeah. So I'm not looking, a LinkedIn profile is not a resume. So it doesn't need to be all inclusive. What it is it's kind of like, back in the day, you exchange, and we obviously we still do today, but you exchange business cards with people. And this, on your business card just had your title and the name of the company you worked with and your location. LinkedIn profiles are certainly the next step past that, where you're giving, you're branding yourself, showing off your personality, giving a flavor of your strengths and a flavor of your behaviors. But it's not meant to be an all-inclusive document like a resume is. So it's okay to keep the your experience in the experience section, to keep that brief. You definitely want to have the correct company name, your title, which, by the way, I want to mention that with titles, some companies have, unique titles. You don't want to use unique titles because I'm, going back to kind of like the Craigslist search, I'm not putting in a unique title phrase. I'm putting in an account manager. I am not putting in, go-getter manager.
Kinds of titles. I've had clients who have titles that don't reflect their jobs at all, and so we have to work on that and actually change the title on their resume so that it's understood by other people. So it feels like it's not quite right to do that, but otherwise it's really misleading.
Right. So you want to have for the experience section, you want to have a simple title, and you want to have a title that's likely searchable, that a recruiter like me would be using those content words to find someone. I do like creativity though. And at the top of the profile, right underneath your name, there's room for like 1 or 2 sentences where you can kind of personalize. And so you can use a creative phrasing there. On my back end, we don't search for that sentence or 2. So any creative content that you use there, I'm not searching for, but it's certainly, when I click on your profile, it's certainly going to resonate with me. But the experience section, yes, you want to have simple titles, and to go back to your question, it can be brief information.
Okay, that's great. So what else, Christine? What else do you think, we've worked with a lot of clients. In your experience, what do you think people need to hear that they're afraid to ask about?
Oh, that's a good question. I think what a lot, I interview candidates every day. I interview candidates multiple, usually at least 2 candidates. Sometimes I have all the way up to 5 candidates. So 2 to 5 candidates a day.
And are those, let me interrupt, are those phone interviews first and then the in-person?
It's both. So most companies now start off with phone interviews. I know most candidates don't like that, the dreaded phone interview.
Right.
And I will say that the intention of the phone interview is just to see, are we on the same page? So the recruiter is usually going to have a few pointed questions for you. Do you have XYZ experience? And they'll, this position is in Los Angeles, and I see that you live in Seattle. Are you willing to relocate? And then salary, like, are we even in the same ballpark? The phone interview is not meant to be an all-inclusive conversation. It's just meant to be, there were a couple of things I'm not clear about on your resume, and I just want to have I give you 30 minutes of my time, or bring you in and take up an hour of my hiring manager's time, which is very valuable, to make sure that we're all on the same field. So that's 99% of the time, that's the purpose of a phone interview. But yes, I do phone interviews and in-person interviews multiple times a day, every day. And your question about is, what did I think most people are afraid to ask or worried about? And there's a couple of things around that. I think one is people are secretly worried, am I enough? Do I have what you want? Those types of thoughts. We all have our alter ego saying, what are you doing here? You're not qualified. And then secondly, they're afraid to ask questions. And they may ask the proverbial questions, what's a day in a life like here? Or what are the benefits like? But this is time that you can really show off your curiosity about the company and your advanced research about the company. So don't be afraid to ask what you think may be more, private questions or not appropriate questions to ask. And you can certainly phrase it in advance. Would you mind if I ask XYZ, if you think it's a question that you can ask? But it's actually on our side, and I am speaking not only as the recruiting manager, but also as the hiring manager, it's impressive when someone asks challenging questions in a respectful way.
Yeah, and I think that's the key phrase there, is the respectful way, right?
Right, being in a respectful way, yes.
And so with the interviewing, you just mentioned something. You said something about salary. Would you get into salary on the screening interview?
Oh, I always ask salary in the screening interview. Yeah, because I want to know, are we even on the same page before I take up time to bring you in? So certainly we want to be respectful of the candidate's time. If candidate is working, they're going to have to take time off from work. We're very respectful that they get dressed up, that they're likely, did some practice the day or two before, they brushed up on their interviewing skills. So that's a lot of time investment on the candidate's perspective, as well as time investment on the hiring manager. We're taking an hour out of their day to come meet with the candidate. So if the candidate we're miles apart on salary, we just, to put it bluntly, wasted everyone's time. So
the question though is, do you tip your hand about the salary, meaning you, the recruiter, or would my client say, oh, well, I'm looking for this much?
Oh, I apologize. So as a candidate, you don't ever want to bring up salary.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, as a candidate, you never bring up salary. As a recruiter, you can anticipate that I will be asking you that question in the phone interview. What is your current compensation, and what compensation are you seeking? So you need to have those answers prepared mentally in your mind. And if for some reason you are, people are always worried about shooting themselves in the foot that they're too high.
Exactly. Yeah, so usually we say the person who speaks about money first is at a disadvantage. So I would rather hear, what are you offering, before I say what I'm making.
Yeah. So you'll likely never get a recruiter to answer that question. What are you? I don't ever disclose it. And I have people that ask, and I respond, I'm not able to disclose it. So, but what you can say is, if you're worried about being too high or shooting yourself in the foot, is, let's just use round numbers, $100,000, and you say and you're worried that that's too high. You can say I'm currently compensated at $100,000, and I'm looking to, for an opportunity that at a minimum meets that, or at a best exceeds that. What's going to happen then is I am the recruiter. Let's say my position is really only $90,000. I then will say to you, thank you for sharing that. That actually exceeds our budget. We're not able to meet that. Would you still be open to a conversation at a less salary, at a reduced salary? I'm not going to tell you it's 90. That's my internal information. And that gives you an opportunity to consider that. You don't have to answer it in that first phone call. You can say, can I have a couple days to think about this? Let me process this. I'm really interested in getting into your law firm in Washington, D.C., and so maybe I would take a pay cut, present on the full package. So you don't have to answer it in the phone call.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. Well, I'm looking at the time, and I know we're at 6:30, which was our cutoff time. And of course, we had a couple of little glitches in there during our session. So I'm sorry about the time we lost there, but I'm so grateful. I think that we really have offered a lot of information here. And now we know about all of those recruiters using the back end of LinkedIn to find great candidates. So this was really helpful. Thank you, Christine. And
thank you for letting me share this with all your listeners out there, all your clients out there. I enjoy it because for me, when I'm viewing talent from a resume and a LinkedIn profile page, I'm very cognitive that that person may be a fantastic software developer, but doesn't have the skill set to present himself on the resume or on the LinkedIn profile. And so sometimes I feel like I'm losing out on talent because they're not pitching themselves forward, but in the best light. But unfortunately, there's thousands of candidates out there. I don't have time to follow up with every single one to say, oh, you really do have the skill set. So I often, would like to come around to the other side of the table and whisper in the ears of all the aspiring candidates out there, those looking for new jobs, simple little things that they can do to make themselves marketable that I will call them. Last thing I want to mention about the LinkedIn profile is that a lot of people I know don't feel that they're good about writing themselves. They have a hard time talking about themselves, or how do I craft a creative sentence. And so if that is you, don't be afraid to get a professional LinkedIn writer. There's a whole industry for folks out there who will write your profile for you. And you spend a little bit of advanced time with them, virtually usually, on the phone or in a Skype session, and they'll do all the heavy work for yourself. So just wanted to give that last plug.
In fact, certainly that's part of the service that we do at Daisy Swan and Associates. And I also have people who are wonderful professionals, and maybe some of them are on this call listening in tonight. But we have great resources to send people to get that kind of support. So, and it is really true. There's a whole industry that's popping up around helping people with their LinkedIn profile. So that's great. Yeah. Well, thank you again, Christine, so much. And I think we'll let people go off and have their dinner or whatever it is. Maybe they're going to their networking functions tonight and meeting. So it's great to see you. And thanks to everybody for joining us. Okay.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.